What would you do if you discovered that the homeless person you helped was connected to one of the most powerful CEOs in the country? Most people walk past hungry strangers every day, but Linda, a poor single mother selling noodles on the roadside, made a choice that seemed insignificant at the time. She gave a simple meal to an elderly man sitting outside her food stall. Little did she know, this single act of kindness was about to unlock doors she never imagined existed and reveal a truth that would turn her ordinary life into something extraordinary. The sun had barely started to rise over the rooftops of Agege, but the streets were already alive with sounds, honking danfos, impatient hawkers, and the familiar clatter of life beginning all over again. Linda stood behind her small roadside noodle stand, stirring the steaming pot. The scent of pepper, garlic, and seasoning floated into the air, wrapping the early morning in a warm, welcoming aroma. Her long braids were tied neatly behind her head, her apron slightly stained but clean. She was only in her 20s, but years of struggle had already carved a quiet strength into her eyes. Her daughter Wendy sat nearby on a plastic stool, her little legs swinging freely as she munched on Puff Puff. Wendy was only 7, but her sharp tongue and wise little sayings often surprised people. Linda turned over the noodles with practiced hands. "Almost ready?" she said softly to no one in particular. Just then, a frail man appeared at the edge of her stall. His clothes were dusty and oversized, his steps unsteady like he wasn't quite sure where he was going. His face was lined and tired, and his eyes seemed to carry too many years and too few smiles. "Excuse me, can I have just a little?" the man asked, his voice dry and uncertain. Linda looked up, surprised. The man wasn't familiar. He didn't look like someone from the neighborhood. She glanced at his empty hands and the way he avoided meeting her eyes. "I'm sorry," he added quickly. I don't have any money, but I haven't eaten since yesterday." Linda didn't hesitate. She turned away, dished up a fresh, steaming bowl of noodles, and added an extra boiled egg on top. "Here," she said, handing it to him gently. "Eat this. You don't have to pay." The man blinked slowly, stunned. Thank you, my child." As he sat down shakily on the bench beside the stall, Wendy peeked at him curiously and said in her usual small, serious voice, "Mommy says eating leftover food can hurt your tummy. This one is fresh." The man looked at the little girl and chuckled softly, the kind of laugh that breaks through a long silence. His hand trembled as he took the first bite. He closed his eyes. This is the best meal I've had in years." Linda smiled. "You're welcome, sir. Come back any time." For a moment, it was as if the morning rush faded away. The shouting drivers, the beeping horns, even the smoke from nearby burners. Everything stood still, wrapped in the quiet grace of a hot meal given without a price. As the man ate slowly, almost reverently, tears filled his tired eyes. "Thank you, young lady. People don't do things like this anymore." Linda nodded politely and returned to her pot, never imagining that the frail old man she just fed would change her entire life. The old man finished every last strand of noodle, carefully scooping up the soup like it was something sacred. When he was done, he wiped his mouth with the edge of his sleeve, eyes still watery. "God bless you, my daughter," he said, placing his hand over his chest. Linda smiled. "No problem, sir. Please rest a bit before you go." He nodded, but didn't get up. He just sat there for a while, staring at the ground, lost in thought. Wendy walked over and handed him a small sachet of water. "You can drink this, Grandpa," she said softly. "Thank you, my dear. What's your name?" "Wendy." "Wendy. That's a lovely name." Linda watched them quietly. Something about the man unsettled her, not in a bad way, but like a familiar memory she couldn't quite place. He looked like someone who had once had everything, and then lost it. Just then, a black SUV rolled to a stop across the road. 2 well-dressed men stepped out quickly. One of them wore sunglasses and carried himself like a man on a mission. He scanned the area before locking eyes on the old man. "Papa Joseph," he called out, hurrying over. The old man looked up slowly. "Ah, so you found me." The man with the sunglasses sighed in relief. "Sir, we've been looking for you everywhere." Please, let's go home." But Papa Joseph shook his head. "No, I'm not going home until I see that girl again." The man frowned. "Which girl?" Papa Joseph pointed to Linda. "That one. She gave me food, kindness. Not just the food, but the way she gave it." The assistant looked at Linda, confused. "You don't know who this is?" he asked her. Linda looked between them, now feeling nervous. "I just served him noodles, like I do for anyone." The assistant stepped back and spoke into his earpiece. "We found him. He's safe." Then he turned to Linda. "Ma, do you mind if we take him now? He's been missing. The family is very worried." Papa Joseph interrupted with a wave of his hand. "Tell my son, Austin, I won't go home until he meets her. She's the kind of woman a man should marry." Linda's eyes widened. "Sir?" she said, half laughing, half worried. "Don't laugh, my child," Papa Joseph said gently. "Your heart. It's what people like us forgot to value a long time ago." He stood up slowly, leaning on one of the assistants. "Tell Austin I said what I said. He should come see her himself." The men led Papa Joseph back into the SUV, and within moments, the vehicle disappeared into traffic. Linda stood frozen for a few seconds. Wendy looked up at her. "Mommy, who was that grandpa?" Linda shook her head. "I don't know, but something tells me we'll see him again." She turned back to her stall, stirring her pot of noodles with a strange feeling rising in her chest. The sky had begun to darken as Linda and Wendy walked home from the stall. The streets were quieter now. Children kicked footballs on the side of the road, while women packed up their goods for the day. The wind carried the smell of roasted corn and dust. Linda held Wendy's hand as they walked past the little shops and kiosks. "Mommy," Wendy said, looking up, "can we have a house with a big window when we move?" Linda smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, with a big window and even a small garden if we're lucky." They turned into their compound, a shared building with peeling paint and loud neighbors. Their apartment was small, a single room with a mattress on the floor, a curtain for a door, and a table with 2 chairs. But it was clean. It was theirs. Michael, Linda's fiancé, or rather, the man she had waited 7 years to marry, was inside, stretched out on the mattress. Shirtless, earphones in, watching something on his phone. He didn't look up. "You're just coming back," he said flatly. Linda didn't reply right away. She set her bag down and pulled out a white envelope. "Michael," she said gently, "the compensation came through. The government finally paid for my father's demolished house." He sat up quickly, pulling the earphones out. "Are you serious?" She nodded. $2 million. Wendy gasped. $2 million? "Yes, baby," Linda said, kneeling beside her. "We can finally get a house, a real one." Wendy smiled wide, her little teeth showing. "Mommy, I want a big house, but I don't want you to work so hard anymore." Linda hugged her tightly. "I'll rest soon. I promise." Michael stood, already thinking fast. "We need to move quickly," he said. "The best houses go fast. Let's put the new place in my name so agents take us seriously. You know how it is." Linda looked at him. She hesitated. He noticed. "What? Don't you trust me?" She forced a smile. "Of course I do." He kissed her cheek quickly. "Good. I'll start looking tomorrow. We'll have our new home in no time." Later that night, after Wendy had fallen asleep, Linda sat by the window, holding the envelope in her hands. She should have been happy, but something in her chest felt strange. Far away, under the dull light of a street lamp, Michael stood with his phone to his ear. "Yes," he whispered. "She got the money, $2 million. Once the house is in my name, she's finished. I'm not wasting another year on her." And with a soft chuckle, he ended the call. The next evening, the city lights blinked in the distance like scattered stars. Inside a small bar tucked behind a fuel station, soft music played from dusty speakers, and the smell of fried meat filled the air. Michael sat in a corner booth, leaning back like a man without worries. He wasn't alone. Across from him sat Vanessa, a woman with sharp makeup, expensive-looking nails, and eyes that didn't blink for long. She was dressed in a tight yellow dress that showed her small baby bump. She sipped her malt drink and looked at him with growing impatience. "You said you'd talk to her by now," she said, tapping her glass. "You said once you got the money we'd make everything official." Michael chuckled lazily. "Relax, babe, everything's moving." "Moving?" Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Michael, I'm carrying your child. You promised me lots of money and a wedding. What exactly is the plan?" Michael leaned forward, lowering his voice. "The plan is simple. Linda got the 2 million. She's all excited about buying a house." Vanessa leaned in too. "And? I'll convince her to put it in my name. Once it's mine, I walk away." Vanessa's lips parted in shock. "You're really doing it?" Michael smirked. "She's waited 3 years. She can wait a bit longer." "And what about her kid?" Vanessa asked. "The little girl?" Michael shrugged. "She's not my problem. She's not even mine." Vanessa shook her head slowly, but she didn't leave. She didn't even stand up. "So when do I get what you promised me?" she asked. "I didn't stick around just to play second to a roadside food seller." Michael reached across the table and placed his hand on her belly. "As soon as the house is mine, I'll propose. I'll get you everything. Wedding, business shares, new apartment. You should know by now. You are the one I love." Vanessa stared at him for a moment, her face unreadable. Then she nodded, slowly. "All right. Just don't take too long. I'm not a fool, Michael." Michael leaned back again and smiled. "Don't worry, babe. She'll never see it coming." What he didn't know was that sometimes the people we think are blind are only keeping their eyes closed to protect themselves. But not forever. The sun was high, the sky a bright, cloudless blue. Music floated through the air, and the smell of grilled chicken and jollof rice drifted out from the newly painted bungalow on the corner of the street. Neighbors stood around in wrappers and slippers, pointing at the rented canopy, the chairs lined up, and the banner that read, "Congratulations, Michael and family, new home, new beginning." Inside the house, Linda moved quietly from room to room, arranging drinks, refilling trays, fixing Wendy's hair. She wore a simple yellow gown, her face glowing with hope. Today was supposed to be special. "Mommy, are we rich now?" Wendy asked, swinging her legs from the couch. Linda smiled gently. "Not rich, baby. Just thankful." In the compound, Michael moved from guest to guest, shaking hands, laughing loudly, pretending like the house was his idea, his effort, his dream. Linda watched him, arms crossed. "At least he's trying," she whispered to herself. But deep down, something still felt off. She was placing cups on a tray when a car horn honked sharply outside the gate. People turned. A sleek silver car pulled up. From the passenger side, Vanessa stepped out, heels clicking, sunglasses shining, belly round beneath a tight yellow dress. Linda frowned. Vanessa didn't walk. She marched in like she owned the place. She didn't even look at Linda. She headed straight for Michael, who froze mid-sentence when he saw her. "What's she doing here?" Linda whispered. The guests looked on, confused. Music continued, but the mood shifted. Vanessa cleared her throat loudly and then smiled sweetly. "Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say congratulations. To us." Michael stepped toward her, panic written across his face. "Vanessa, not here. Please." Too late. Vanessa turned to the crowd and spoke louder. "I'm so happy to finally show off the house Michael bought me, as my engagement gift." Gasps. Chairs shifted. Someone dropped a drink. Linda dropped her tray. "What did you just say?" she asked, barely able to breathe. Vanessa tilted her head. "Oh, he didn't tell you. Michael and I are getting married. I'm pregnant. And this house, my house, is part of the celebration." Michael tried to speak, but his lips moved without sound. The world around Linda blurred. She looked at the house she had paid for with years of sweat, pain, and patience. Her hands began to shake. Wendy stepped beside her, confused. "Mommy? Why is everyone staring at us?" Linda looked down at her daughter, then back at the man she thought she loved. She opened her mouth to speak, but a black SUV rolled into the compound, cutting through the tension. The door opened slowly. Austin stepped out. In a clean suit, calm and focused, he looked around, then walked up to Linda. "Miss Linda?" he said gently. Everyone turned. "My grandpa, Papa Joseph, sent me," Austin said. "He insisted I meet you." Linda blinked at him, stunned. Austin glanced at Michael, then Vanessa, then at the banner overhead. He nodded slowly. "Interesting party," he said. "But I believe it's built on the wrong foundation." Michael tried to smile. "Please, this isn't—" "Save it," Austin said sharply. Then he turned back to Linda. "Do you have a moment?" For a moment, the entire compound stood still. Music stopped. Laughter faded. Even the wind seemed to pause. All eyes were now on Austin, the man who had just stepped in like a stranger but spoke with quiet power. Linda stood frozen beside Wendy, her hands still trembling from what had just happened. Michael swallowed hard. "Please, sir. This is just a misunderstanding." Austin turned slowly to face him. "Misunderstanding?" he asked calmly. "So lying to a woman, stealing her money, and parading another woman at a housewarming she funded is a misunderstanding?" Michael stammered, unable to speak. Vanessa rolled her eyes and folded her arms. "Who are you anyway?" she asked. "This is none of your business." Austin raised a brow. "I am Austin Joseph." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few people whispered, "Joseph? As in, the billionaire family? That's the handsome billionaire everyone talks about." Just then, a second black car pulled up at the gate. And slowly, with careful steps and a familiar tired smile, Papa Joseph emerged. He was wearing a clean pressed shirt and holding a walking stick. His eyes searched the crowd until they found one person, Linda. He smiled and nodded, like he'd been expecting this moment. "There she is," he said. Austin stepped forward. "Papa, you shouldn't be out in this heat." "I told you I would come," Papa Joseph replied. "I said I wouldn't rest until you met her yourself." He turned to face the crowd. "Everyone here should listen carefully. This woman," he said, pointing at Linda, "fed me when I had no money, no name, and no strength left." Whispers spread. "She didn't ask who I was. She didn't ask for payment. She just gave me a fresh bowl of food and treated me like a human being." He turned to Austin. "That kind of heart is rare. That's why I said you must meet her. You must know her. I'm glad you're here already." Austin looked at Linda carefully. He was trying to keep his face unreadable, but something behind his eyes changed. A flicker of thought, a strange pull in his chest. Something about her seemed familiar. He didn't say it out loud, but a quiet suspicion had taken root. Linda looked confused, still shaken by everything happening around her. Michael finally broke his silence. I didn't know she was connected to you." Austin's expression turned cold. "You shouldn't need to know someone's status to treat them with respect." He faced Linda again. "Thank you for helping my grandfather when we couldn't find him. Most people would have walked away." Linda stayed quiet. Her eyes flicked between Austin, Papa Joseph, and the people watching her every move. Beside her, Wendy clutched her hand. Papa Joseph leaned down slightly and smiled at the girl. "Your mommy has a good heart. I hope you grow up just like her." Wendy nodded proudly. "I already am." And Linda, for the first time that day, allowed herself a small, quiet smile. Later that evening, long after the guests had left and the shame of the party had faded into quiet whispers, Linda sat outside her stall. She hadn't gone home. She didn't know what home even meant anymore. Wendy was asleep on her lap, her little arms curled around her waist like she was holding on to something she couldn't lose. Linda stared at nothing, her mind empty and full at the same time. She didn't hear the car drive up. She didn't look up until the door opened and Austin stepped out. He was alone. He walked over and stopped in front of her, his voice low. "Can we talk?" Linda nodded slowly. They sat across from each other at a wooden bench beside the noodle stand. The streets were quieter now, just the low hum of generators in the distance and the chirp of crickets in the dark. Austin looked serious but not cold, calm but not emotionless. "I know today was overwhelming," he began. Linda gave a small laugh. It sounded tired. "That's one word for it." There was a short silence between them before Austin continued. "My grandfather, Pa Joseph, he hasn't smiled that much in months. And he hasn't stopped talking about you since the day you gave him that bowl of noodles." Linda looked down at Wendy's sleeping face. "He's kind and gentle. I just did what anyone would have done." "No," Austin said. "You didn't. He said most people walked past him. Some even insulted him. But you treated him like a human being. You made him feel seen." He took a deep breath, then looked directly at her. "His health has been getting worse. He has dementia. Some days he forgets who I am. Some days he doesn't speak at all. But since that day he met you and Wendy, he hasn't stopped talking. He insists he's found the woman I should marry. He believes it so strongly that the doctors say it's actually helping his condition." Linda said nothing. She listened carefully. Austin hesitated, then continued. "Look, I'll be honest. I don't believe in marriage. I never have. And even if I have changed my mind, I already have someone I'm looking for." Linda raised her eyebrows slightly but didn't speak. "So what I'm asking isn't romantic, it's practical." "A 1-year contract," Austin said. "Marriage, in name only." Linda sat back. The word marriage echoed in her mind. "You want me to pretend to be your wife?" Austin nodded. "We'll handle the legal side. It'll be private. We'll set clear boundaries. No pressure. Just make my father happy for 1 year. After that, we go our separate ways." Linda didn't answer. She just sat there, holding Wendy a little tighter. "You'll be well taken care of," he added. "You and your daughter. You'll live in a safer place. You won't have to worry about money. Or Michael." That name stung. Linda looked up at the man across from her. "And after 1 year?" she asked. "We cancel everything. No drama, no scandal. Just thank you and goodbye." Linda stared into the night sky. She didn't dream of wealth. She didn't dream of mansions or rich husbands. She only ever wanted peace, safety, a quiet life for Wendy. And right now, this strange man she barely knew was offering her exactly that. But it wasn't for her. It was for Pa Joseph, the old man who had called her a treasure. She sighed deeply. "I'll do it," she said softly. Austin looked surprised. "Are you sure?" She nodded once. "But I'm doing it for him, not for you." He nodded respectfully. "That's more than enough." 2 days later, Linda stood in front of a grand gate. The iron gates of the mansion opened slowly, revealing a long paved driveway lined with palm trees and trimmed hedges. Linda held Wendy's hand tightly as they stepped forward, dragging 2 modest travel bags behind them. Wendy's eyes lit up at the sight of the white mansion ahead, tall and shiny like something out of a dream. "Mommy," she gasped, "is this where we're going to live now?" Linda gave a small smile. "Yes, baby. For now." Wendy squealed softly and skipped a little ahead. But Linda didn't skip. Her heart was beating slowly, heavily. The house was beautiful, yes, but it wasn't hers. The air smelled different too, like glass cleaner, imported soap, and polished furniture. She already felt out of place. A uniformed guard greeted them at the door, and a housemaid gently took their bags. Inside, the floors gleamed like mirrors. A wide chandelier hung above them, and tall glass windows let the afternoon sunlight flood the living room. Wendy spun in a circle, arms open wide. "This place looks like a hotel." Linda stood quietly, her arms folded. She was still wondering if this was a mistake. "Look who's here," a familiar voice called from behind. Linda turned to see Papa Joseph walking toward them with a wide smile. His steps were slow, but he moved with more strength than before. "Ah, my dear Linda," he said warmly. "You brought my princess too." He opened his arms, and Wendy ran to hug him. "Grandpa," she said. Papa Joseph chuckled, hugging her tight. "Ah, I've missed you too. This house has been too quiet." Linda smiled gently. "It's good to see you again, sir." "No sir in this house," he replied. "Just call me Papa." Linda nodded, but inside she still didn't feel at home. Later that evening, Austin met her in the sitting room. He had just returned from work, still dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark trousers. He looked tired, but composed. "You're settling in?" he asked. Linda nodded. "It's a lot to get used to." "Take your time," he said. "I've also arranged something else." She looked up, curious. "There's an open role at my company, AJ Enterprises. It's in the fashion design department. You mentioned you used to sketch clothes." Linda hesitated. "Yes, but that was a long time ago. I've never worked in a real fashion company before." "Everyone starts somewhere," Austin said. "You'll begin as an assistant designer. The head of department is expecting you next week." Linda didn't know what to say. "You don't have to take it," he added. "But I thought you might want something that's yours, not just this house." She swallowed. "Thank you." A week later, Linda walked into the bright lobby of AJ Enterprises. The building was tall and glassy, with air conditioning that made her feel too cold and floors that clicked under her borrowed shoes. Her knees felt a little weak, but she straightened her back and kept walking. She was introduced to the design team, women in stylish blouses, heels clicking across the marble tiles, laughing at inside jokes. Linda wore a plain blouse and a skirt she'd owned for 4 years. As she settled into her desk, she noticed a few whispers. "That's her, the street girl. I heard she used to sell noodles in Agege." Imagine, coming from the street into AJ Enterprises. She heard every word, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she opened the sketchbook she brought from home, quietly turned to a blank page and picked up a pencil. And just like before, she began again, from scratch. Later that evening, Linda sat at her new desk, carefully sketching the neckline of a gown. The office was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers and the clicking of heels across the tiled floor. She worked quietly, as always, eyes down, pencil moving smoothly. But she felt it. That strange weight of being watched. Not just by her colleagues, by Austin. Earlier that morning, Austin sat alone in his office, scrolling through a private file on his laptop. His jaw was tight, his brows drawn together in quiet thought. He had never forgotten that night. 7 years ago. A hotel. A drugged drink. Confusion. He barely remembered anything except the sound of a woman's voice, and the strange comfort of being held when he felt most helpless. There was only one clue left from that night, a jade pendant which the woman had worn. The only blurry CCTV footage they recovered had shown a silhouette beside her, but the camera had glitched before they could see the woman's face clearly. It was a mystery that had haunted him quietly over the years. He had never told anyone, not even Pa Joseph. But now, something about Linda tugged at the memory. Her calm voice, the gentleness, the way Wendy looked at her. It was a security snapshot from a few days ago. Wendy playing in the mansion's garden. Around her neck, a jade pendant. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be? He didn't know yet. But now, he needed to find out. Back in the design room, things weren't as quiet as they seemed. Angela, the senior designer, stood at the head of the department with arms crossed and lips tight. She had noticed the stares, the whispers, the change in atmosphere since Linda joined, and she hated it. She walked over to Linda's desk, heels clicking sharply, a mocking smile on her lips. "You look very focused," Angela said loudly enough for others to hear. "What are you drawing? Instant noodles and aprons?" A few of the other designers snickered. Linda paused for a second but didn't look up. "Just a rough concept sketch," she replied calmly. Angela raised an eyebrow. I'm surprised you even know what that means. But then again, you seem to know the right people." Linda remained silent. Her pencil moved again, smoothly, confidently. Angela leaned in closer. "You might fool the others, but not me. I've worked too hard to let some street vendor come in here and play designer." Linda looked up finally, her eyes calm, steady. "I'm not here to play anything, I'm just doing my job." Angela was about to reply, but then everything froze. Austin had just walked in. He wasn't supposed to be on that floor. He never came to the design department without calling ahead. Everyone stood straighter, voices hushed. He didn't say a word at first. He looked around slowly, then turned to Angela. Problem? Angela straightened her dress. No, sir. Just giving a little direction to the new girl. Austin's gaze shifted to Linda, who stood quietly beside her desk. Her hands were by her side. She didn't complain. She didn't defend herself. But something about her silence hit deeper than words. Austin turned to Angela again. From now on, if you have feedback, give it to the team professionally. If you can't do that, we'll find someone who can. Angela's smile dropped. Yes, sir. Without another word, Austin turned and left the room. The silence he left behind was louder than any shout. Whispers started instantly. The CEO spoke up for her? He never does that. He didn't even look at Angela. Angela stormed off without saying another word. Linda sat back down quietly, heart still steady. She didn't know why Austin had spoken up. She didn't know he had started putting clues together. But somewhere deep in her gut, she knew her life at AJ Enterprises would never be the same. 2 weeks had passed since Linda quietly moved into Austin's mansion. Everything had happened quietly, on paper, clean and fast. Just a simple, silent wedding registry. No rings, no ceremony, no press. Just a signature, a name, and a contract. Only a few people inside the Joseph family knew about it. But secrets don't stay quiet for long. Across town, Vanessa stood by a window in Michael's one-bedroom apartment, staring down at a noisy street below. Her arms were folded, lips pressed tight. Michael sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone. Why are you so quiet? He asked. Vanessa turned sharply. So, it's true. Michael looked up. What is? Linda and Austin. They got married. Michael blinked, confused. What are you talking about? Vanessa stepped closer and threw her phone at him. I saw it on a blog. Someone took a picture at the registry. Your ex, the same woman you used, is now married to one of the richest men in the country. And me. She pointed to herself. I'm stuck in a room that smells like beans and sweat with no light, no AC, and you. Michael read the article, eyes narrowing. Linda Johnson weds billionaire CEO Austin Joseph in quiet private ceremony. Sources say it was unexpected but official. He dropped the phone slowly. This can't be real. Vanessa was already pacing. I told you to hurry. I told you not to waste time. Now look, your foolish little plan backfired. She's rich, she's protected, and I'm stuck here. Pregnant. With nothing. Michael stood up. Don't talk to me like that. Why not? You're broke, you're weak, and you couldn't even outsmart a noodle seller. Michael's jaw clenched. She tricked me. Vanessa scoffed. No, you tricked yourself. You'd better look for money, Michael. I didn't sign up to suffer with you. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night, Michael sat alone in the dark, lit only by the glow of his phone screen. He scrolled through photos of Linda on blogs, photos from her new life, stepping out of a company car, holding Wendy's hand, smiling politely beside Austin. She looked different now. Not richer, not glamorous, just respected. And that made his stomach twist. She doesn't belong there, he muttered. She's nothing but a poor single mother, a roadside food seller. Who does she think she is? His fingers tightened around the phone. I built her. I tolerated her for 3 whole years. And now she gets to be a billionaire's wife? He stood up suddenly, breathing fast. If she thinks this is over, she's dreaming. He opened his laptop, eyes burning with anger. I'll destroy her image. I'll remind the world who she really is. Michael smiled bitterly to himself. Let's see how long a rich man wants to stay married to a woman whose past gets dragged through the mud. And with one click, the war had begun. Meanwhile, across town, Angela scrolled through the blog post again, lips twisted in annoyance. Linda Johnson, CEO's wife. She stared at the picture of Linda standing beside Austin, wearing a simple dress, no makeup, but looking quietly powerful. You've got to be kidding me, she muttered. She slammed her laptop shut. To her, it wasn't just gossip, it was an insult. She had worked in AJ Enterprises for 5 years, clawed her way up, sacrificed weekends, sleep, even relationships, and now a charity case who barely knew what a pattern was had been handed a front row seat in her department and stealing her man. But she wasn't going to let that slide. She had waited too long for Austin to notice her. The following morning, the design team gathered in the conference room for the quarterly pitch review. Linda sat quietly near the end of the table, flipping through her sketch folder. Angela stood at the head, holding a remote and trying to look neutral. But she had a plan. "Let's start with the new initiative," Angela said. "We asked team members to submit a design collection to represent our upcoming Afro-modern rebrand. One stood out, so let's take a look." The projector came to life. Linda's eyes widened slightly. Her designs, her sketches were being shown on the screen, but with no name attached. Angela continued, voice smooth. "This concept is clean, but it lacks identity. The colors are safe. The structure is predictable. It's okay." Linda felt her chest tighten. These were her ideas, her concepts, her work, and Angela was dismissing them like scrap paper. The door opened quietly. Austin walked in. Everyone sat up straighter. Angela pressed on. "Frankly, I expected more, but since this is a learning curve for some of us, we can treat it as practice." Austin, now seated quietly at the corner of the table, spoke up for the first time. "Who designed it?" Angela blinked. "It came from the junior desk. I wasn't given a name." Austin turned toward Linda, his expression unreadable. "Is it yours?" Linda met his gaze, calm, steady. "Yes." There was a pause. Then Austin stood. He walked toward the screen slowly, taking in the full layout of the collection. "Look at this," he said. "It blends traditional African patterns with clean, wearable lines. It's culturally respectful without being costume, strong without being loud." Angela's face paled slightly. Austin turned back to the room. "This is the face of the campaign." Angela's mouth opened. "Sir." "No," Austin said firmly. "The decision is final." Gasps echoed silently, but no one said anything. The following week, excitement buzzed through AJ Enterprises like electricity. A group of high-profile international clients were flying in from London and South Africa, top buyers from fashion houses and luxury boutiques. A private showcase was scheduled. Only the most promising designers would present. Linda had been selected. Angela hated it. And she wasn't going to sit and watch a woman she once called a roadside noodle seller take center stage. 2 days before the pitch, Angela entered the design vault with a junior staff badge she borrowed from an intern. She swapped out fabric tags, removed Linda's presentation notes, and quietly deleted one of her mood boards from the system. But Linda, arriving early the next morning, noticed something was off. She didn't panic. Instead, she rewrote her pitch, pulled out her old sketchbook and started from scratch again. By the time the clients arrived, she was ready. The room was warm with quiet tension. Models stood lined up in Linda's designs, bold yet grounded, Afro-inspired, but effortlessly modern. Linda stepped forward in a simple blouse and skirt, holding no slides, no marketing jargon, just a story. "These clothes aren't just pieces of fabric," she said softly. "They're memories. I watched women carry buckets of water and still walk like queens, of men who had nothing but wore their Sunday shirts with pride. I didn't study abroad. I didn't learn fashion in Paris. I learned it on the streets, watching people who made beauty out of struggle." The room was silent. And then applause. Even the coldest buyers nodded in approval. One leaned over and whispered to Austin, "Now that's authenticity." Austin simply nodded, arms folded across his chest, but his eyes never left Linda. After the meeting, Linda was called into the boardroom. Angela was already there, pale, sweating slightly. A senior manager stood beside Austin. "There was tampering in the system," he said plainly. "And we traced the login to your account, Angela." Angela stuttered. It was a mistake. A mistake that could have cost us millions," the manager replied. Austin turned to her. "You're being demoted, effective immediately." Angela's mouth opened, then closed again. She couldn't speak. Linda stood to the side, saying nothing. She hadn't asked for revenge. She had simply shown up and done the work. "Linda," Austin added, "excellent job. The clients were impressed. You've made this company proud." Linda nodded, heart pounding. Angela, watching it all, felt her blood boil. She clenched her fists behind her back. "She's not better than me," she muttered under her breath. "I'll bring her down, one way or another." And with that, she walked out. But her silence was dangerous. Because now, it wasn't just competition. It was war. Meanwhile, the air in the Joseph mansion felt lighter these days. With Linda around, laughter returned to rooms that once echoed only with silence. The scent of her cooking drifted through the halls, often followed by the giggles of Wendy, running barefoot down the marble floors. And Papa Joseph? He was doing better. Much better. The doctors noticed it first. His speech was clearer, his memory lapses less frequent. He began recognizing faces more easily and even started reading his old newspapers again. "This woman," he'd often say, pointing at Linda, "brought life back to this house." He and Wendy had grown inseparable. They played checkers in the garden every morning, and he always let her win, though she never knew that. One Saturday afternoon, Wendy sat on Austin's lap in the living room, showing him drawings she made of their family. One picture had her in the middle, with Linda on one side and Austin on the other. "That's you, Daddy," she said casually, pointing to his stick figure with big arms and glasses. Austin looked down at her, surprised. "Daddy?" Wendy nodded. "You're the only daddy I know. And I like you." He didn't know what to say, but something stirred in his chest. Warm, protective, deep. He looked over at Linda, who was quietly folding laundry nearby. That's when the thought crept in again. Could Wendy be his daughter? The dates were fuzzy. The timelines matched strangely. The jade pendant, the blurry memory, and Linda. He had always felt something strange, something familiar, and he couldn't ignore it anymore. Later that evening, as Wendy napped in the guest room, he found Linda alone on the balcony, looking out over the city. He stepped beside her. "Can I ask you something personal?" he said. She nodded slowly. "Wendy's father. Do you know where he is?" Her hand froze slightly. She didn't turn to look at him. "No," she said quietly. "It was a long time ago. A confusing night. I don't remember everything, and honestly, I'd rather not talk about it." Austin respected that. He didn't push further. But in his mind, questions kept spinning like loose pages in the wind. The peace didn't last long. That same week, Michael came crawling back. He showed up uninvited at the entrance of AJ Enterprises, clothes wrinkled, face thinner, voice desperate. "Linda," he said when she stepped outside, "I need help. 500,000, just to clear a small debt." Linda folded her arms. "You already cleared everything you needed when you took my money and bought a house for someone else." Michael's face hardened. "Don't be like this. You know how much I've done for you." She stared at him. 3 years. I stood beside you for 3 years. And the moment I got some money, you betrayed me. Lied. Mocked me in front of everyone. And now you show up empty-handed, asking for more? Michael stepped forward. "Fine. You want the truth? I was never going to marry you, Linda. What man would marry a woman who already had another man's child?" Her eyes didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood still. But the words hit deep. Wendy, who had come running down the hallway looking for her mom, had heard everything. She rushed forward and planted herself between her mother and Michael. Small, fierce, brave. "Don't bully my mommy!" she shouted, fists clenched. Michael blinked. "Wendy, go inside," Linda said gently. But Wendy stood firm. "You don't deserve her. She cooks, she works, she loves, and she's mine. So go away." Michael scoffed. "Brat." Linda stepped forward and placed a calm hand on Wendy's shoulder. "We're done, Michael. For good." He looked at her one last time, scoffed, and walked away, without another word, another apology, or another lie. Linda knelt beside Wendy, brushing her hair gently. "Thank you, my brave girl." Wendy looked up. "I don't like seeing you sad, Mommy." Linda hugged her tight. And in that moment, despite the past, the pain, and the questions still hanging in the air, she felt strong. Not because she had answers, but because she had love. The following week, Linda stepped out of the mansion with Wendy's tiny hand in hers and a thick envelope tucked beneath her arm. Inside were neatly arranged documents: birth certificate, immunization records, prior school results, a glowing character recommendation, and more. She had done everything right. Today she was applying for Wendy's admission into Starlight Academy, one of the best schools in the city. She didn't want Wendy to feel less than anyone else. Not anymore. Inside the school office, Mr. Roberts, the principal, sat behind a massive desk with gold lettering across the front. His glasses rested low on his nose as he skimmed the papers Linda had submitted. He looked up at her, not with warmth, but with vague irritation. No referral letter from a partner family? Linda shook her head. "No, sir, but all the other documents are complete. Her scores are excellent." "I see," he muttered. "We'll have to get back to you." She frowned. "But there's space, isn't there? Wendy is more than qualified." Mr. Roberts smiled stiffly. "Madam, this school is very competitive. We prioritize certain backgrounds. Thank you." He slid the documents back across the desk. Linda stood, quietly gathered the papers, and walked out with Wendy, holding her little hand even tighter. That afternoon Austin came home early and found Linda sitting silently in the garden, eyes distant. "Everything okay?" he asked. She hesitated, then explained what happened. Austin's face darkened. He pulled out his phone and made a single call. The next morning, Mr. Roberts was in his office when his secretary rushed in, nearly tripping over her heels. "Sir, AJ Enterprises just called." He looked up, frowning. "And?" "The CEO himself. He said we mishandled an application from one of his person, and that he'll pull all their sponsorships and tech funding." Mr. Roberts froze. "What did you say her name was again?" he asked, voice shaking. "Linda Johnson." His forehead broke into sweat. He quickly dialed her number from the school file system. "Miss Johnson, there must have been a misunderstanding. We'd love to meet Wendy again. The board was just reviewing her impressive file. Please come by tomorrow. Full admission." But the drama wasn't over yet. A student from Class 9A had been filming random TikTok videos on campus when he accidentally caught something else on camera. He was hiding behind a hallway pillar trying to film his crush, but instead his camera picked up a hushed conversation. It was Mr. Roberts in his office with Angela. "I did what you asked," Roberts said, quietly sliding a brown envelope into his drawer. "But this better not come back to me." Angela replied, "Just make sure she doesn't get anywhere near that school." The student stopped recording, eyes wide. By nightfall, the clip was online. By morning it had gone viral. Starlight Academy was trending. #Bribegate, #corrupt principal, #Angela exposed, news blogs, gossip pages, and corporate forums all picked it up. Parents demanded answers. Board members called emergency meetings. Mr. Roberts was forced to resign before noon. And Angela, already hanging on by a thread, her reputation completely crumbled. She didn't bother showing up to work the next day. Inside AJ Enterprises, people stopped whispering when Linda walked by. They nodded now. Some even smiled because somehow she kept winning battles without lifting a weapon. But while Linda flourished, Angela's life was taking a downward turn. Whispers continued to fill AJ Enterprises corridors. The scandal had turned public. Her reputation was in shambles, her fall from grace broadcast across every gossip blog and social page. She had stayed quiet for a few days, disappearing from meetings, avoiding calls, and ignoring messages. Although Austin hadn't made any comment, she knew it was only a matter of time before she lost everything, so she decided to act first. That Saturday evening, the Joseph mansion was calm. Linda was helping Papa Joseph adjust his slippers in the garden, while Wendy giggled nearby, braiding flowers into a crown. The breeze was soft, the mood peaceful. Then the front gates burst open. Angela marched in, her eyes wild with fury, security trailing her but unable to stop her fast enough. "You think you've won, don't you?" she spat, storming toward Linda. Linda stood up instantly, placing herself between Angela and Papa Joseph. "Angela, you shouldn't be here." "Oh, spare me the humble act. You are just a cheap gold digger," Angela snapped. "You ruined my career. You humiliated me in front of the whole city." "I didn't do anything to you. You did this to yourself," Linda replied, voice steady. Angela's eyes darted to Papa Joseph, who had stepped between them, hands raised. "Young lady, I think you need to leave. This is my home." "Old man, stay out of it," she hissed, and without thinking, shoved him aside. He stumbled back. Linda gasped and rushed to catch him, steadying him just before he lost his balance. "Papa, are you okay?" she whispered, holding his arm tightly. "I'm all right, dear. I'm all right." But by then, Austin came running out from inside the house, having heard the raised voices. He stopped cold when he saw Papa Joseph shaking, Linda kneeling beside him, and Angela, standing there red-faced and still breathing heavily. "What the hell are you doing in my home?" Austin's voice was sharp and dangerous. Angela turned toward him, panic beginning to creep into her expression. I was just trying to explain." "Get out," Austin said. "Austin, you assaulted my grandfather. You're fired. And if you come near this house again, I'll have you arrested." Angela's mouth opened in shock, but she saw it in his eyes. He meant every word. Security arrived a moment later. She didn't resist. She couldn't. She just walked out, broken, beaten, and bitter. Linda helped Papa Joseph back into the house, gently guiding him to the couch with Wendy close behind. "I'll make him tea," Linda said quietly. "She's special, you know," Papa Joseph whispered. "I've always said it." Austin didn't reply. He just nodded slowly, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. Later that night, long after everyone had gone to bed, Austin sat alone in his study, eyes locked on his laptop screen. Earlier that week, he'd secretly requested a digital forensics team to restore an old grainy piece of CCTV footage from a hotel room 7 years ago, the night he'd been drugged, lost, and confused. He didn't even know why he still held on to the footage. But now, it was clear. The screen flickered. A woman's hand, helping him to sit, wrapping a blanket around him. He paused the video, zoomed in. There was no doubt now. It was her, Linda, the woman he had been searching for all along. He sat back slowly in the chair, a strange mix of emotions washing over him, shock, relief, and something else, something deeper. She never told me. Did she know? Should I tell her now? He looked at a family photo on the table, Linda smiling, Wendy in her arms, Papa Joseph behind them. His mind was made up. Tomorrow I'll tell her everything. The morning after the discovery, Austin sat in his car, staring at the envelope in his hand. He had ordered the DNA test in secret. Not because he didn't believe his guts, but because he needed to know for sure. Everything had lined up, the dates, the bracelet, Wendy's age, even the way Wendy's eyes sparkled when she laughed, just like his. He had smiled at that thought, more than once. But now the truth was sealed inside that envelope. He opened it with slightly trembling hands. He read the words slowly. Paternity match, 99.9% probability. Wendy was his daughter. The little girl who called him Daddy with so much joy. The same girl he had grown to love without even knowing she was his own. That evening, Linda was in the kitchen helping the cook prepare pepper soup when Austin walked in quietly. She looked up and smiled at him, but paused when she saw his expression. "Can we talk?" he asked gently. She wiped her hands and followed him to the quiet sitting room, where the light was soft and warm. He sat beside her, not too close, but not far. He took a breath and handed her the paper. She read it once, then twice, then slowly lowered it to her lap. Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she didn't cry. She looked at him, heart racing. "That night, 7 years ago," she began slowly, "you were brought into the lounge by 2 men. I was working there as a waitress. It was my first week. You looked confused, scared, like something was wrong. She exhaled shakily. You said you'd been drugged. You begged me not to leave you alone. I didn't know what else to do. I took you to the guest room in the back. I helped you lay down. You kept holding my hand. Her voice cracked a little, but she didn't stop. You were trembling. You said you didn't want to hurt anyone. You looked lonely and vulnerable. A small painful laugh escaped her lips. I didn't see your face clearly that night. The lights were dim, and I gave you my first night, not because I had to, but because you looked so broken. I just wanted to help you feel safe. She looked down, and after, you disappeared.
No name, no goodbye. I left the job a few weeks later when I found out I was pregnant. Her eyes lifted to meet his. I didn't know who the father was. I just knew that night changed my life. Austin's throat tightened. His hands were clasped together. He looked at her, not with anger, not with confusion, but with something far deeper. Gratitude, understanding. You saved me, he said quietly. Not just my grandfather in the street that day. Me, 7 years ago, I was falling apart. And you caught me, gave yourself to me. Linda wiped her cheek gently. I've felt ashamed for years. Not because of Wendy, but because I didn't know how to explain her story. How do you tell your child? I don't know who your father is. Austin moved closer now. You don't have to explain anymore, he said softly, because now I do. And in the doorway, quietly listening without interruption, Papa Joseph stood with Wendy's hand in his. He smiled. I knew it, he said, stepping forward. From the moment I saw you two together. Linda stood quickly, wiping her eyes. Papa. Shh, he interrupted, lifting his hand gently. No more contracts, no more pretending. He turned to Austin. You love her. She loves you. And that little girl over there, my great-granddaughter, deserves to see what real love looks like. He smiled wider. It's time. Let's make this official. For real. 2 days later, in the garden behind the Joseph mansion, the sun lit up the petals of soft yellow roses, and the air was filled with soft music and gentle laughter. It was a simple wedding. No press, no fancy guests. Just family. Papa Joseph sat front row with a proud grin. Wendy stood between Linda and Austin, holding a small velvet box in her tiny hands. These are your rings, she said shyly. You're really getting married now, not pretend. Austin smiled at her, then looked at Linda. No one said anything for a moment. Then the pastor cleared his throat. Austin Joseph, do you take Linda Johnson? I do, Austin said softly, before the sentence could even finish. The pastor smiled and turned to Linda. Linda Johnson, do you? I do, she whispered. They slid the rings on, hand in hand, tear in tear, smile in smile. This time no contracts, no pretending, just love. The wedding had been quiet, but beautiful. Wendy now skipped around the Joseph mansion, humming Here Comes the Bride at least 3 times a day. Everyone laughed, including the staff. Linda had never seen Papa Joseph this full of life. His memory was sharper, his steps lighter. He insisted on calling her my daughter to every guest who visited. Everything felt like peace was finally here. Until the gate buzzed, and chaos came roaring back. It was late evening. A soft drizzle was falling. The guard opened the side gate just a crack, only to see Michael swaying on his feet, breath heavy with alcohol. Linda! He shouted, gripping the gate. I know you're in there. You don't deserve all this. His voice echoed through the compound. You think you're a princess now, huh? Just because some CEO married you? You're still the same girl who used to beg for love. Linda, upstairs in the nursery with Wendy, froze. Austin was already on the way down, calm but deadly serious. He walked straight to the gate and stood just beyond it, facing Michael. The guards tried to block him, but Austin raised a hand. Michael squinted. You, rich boy, you think money makes her better? Austin didn't blink. She was better before I ever met her. Michael laughed bitterly. She's trash.
I used her and she let me. Austin stepped forward, calm but powerful. Let me tell you something, Michael, he said evenly. She gave more in poverty than you ever could in riches. Michael's face twisted. You'll regret this, both of you. Before he could finish, Austin nodded to the guards. Remove him, permanently. This time they didn't hesitate. 2 men escorted Michael out of the gates and out of their lives, for good. The next week, the office was buzzing. At AJ Enterprises, Linda entered the building to find her name proudly listed on the designer board in the main hall. But not just as a designer, lead designer. Her first official fashion line was ready. Simple, elegant, rooted in the colors of earth and sky, soft blues, humble browns, and graceful flowing fabric. She named it Humble Grace. And when the line launched, every model walked barefoot, symbolizing her journey from the ground up. Critics called it boldly modest, emotional, a tribute to working women. Austin called it perfect. And Papa Joseph? He clapped the loudest at the company showcase. Afterward, as they stood in the mansion garden under the night sky, he hugged Wendy close and kissed her forehead. Now I can finally rest in peace, he whispered, smiling. Wendy looked up, confused. But you're not going anywhere, Grandpa. He chuckled softly. No, not yet. But when the time comes, my heart will already be home. Linda stood beside them, quiet tears in her eyes. Austin slipped his hand into hers. There was no need for words. They had already come too far. Together. It didn't take long, barely 2 weeks after the launch of Linda's new design. The headlines came fast. Fashion exec arrested for fraud. Angela faces 7 charges: embezzlement, bribery, and tampering with school system. Exclusive: Angela linked to school bribe scandal with Principal Roberts. Angela didn't say a word when they put the cuffs on her. Not to the press, not even to her lawyer. The truth had finally caught up with her, and this time, there was nowhere to run. Meanwhile, Vanessa stood in a dimly lit apartment, arms crossed, looking Michael dead in the eye. You're broke, you're useless, and you want me to raise a baby in this mess. Michael, slumped on the couch, whispered, But it's yours, our child. Vanessa scoffed. I never wanted a child. I wanted status, shares, and now you can't even buy me airtime. As soon as I get out of here, I will get rid of this child. She picked up her handbag and walked to the door. Do whatever you want, I'm done. He rushed to her. Vanessa, wait, don't do this. You think I'll suffer with a man who's nothing? Wake up. And she left. The door slammed. And something inside Michael finally snapped. Rage, jealousy, desperation. He had lost everything, and in his twisted mind he blamed Linda. She caused all these, it's all her fault, that poor naive single mother. He muttered, She owes me. That night he followed her, waited near the AJ Enterprises parking lot. When Linda stepped out after a meeting alone, Michael pounced, dragging her toward a black car, but he didn't make it far. 2 guards, sent routinely by Austin, spotted the struggle instantly. One tackled Michael to the ground. The other rushed to Linda, who was shaken but unharmed. Police arrived within minutes. Michael screamed as he was dragged away in handcuffs. You ruined me, Linda. I was supposed to have it all. Linda stood silent. And then slowly she turned and walked away without looking back. A few weeks later, Linda stood before a sea of women at a women's empowerment event hosted by AJ Foundation. Dressed in a soft cream blazer, she held the mic gently, her voice calm but steady. I didn't grow up with wealth. I didn't grow up with power. But I grew up with courage. I used to think being quiet made me humble. Now I know. Speaking up makes you strong. You don't need permission to rise. You just need to believe your story is worth something. Because it is. The room erupted in applause. Her story had started with pain. But now, it was full of purpose. At Starlight Academy, Wendy sat in the front row at the science fair, proudly holding a ribbon that read, Best Invention, Primary Division. She had built a small solar-powered fan for street vendors. "Like the one my mommy used to be," she had told the judges, smiling. Austin and Linda clapped the loudest. At the annual AJ International Conference, the grand ballroom shimmered with golden lights. It wasn't just another corporate gala. It was a celebration of family, healing, and legacy. Top partners from across Africa and abroad sat in rows, sipping champagne and murmuring about the real reason for the event. There were rumors, whispers about a woman, a child, a shift in leadership. Then Austin stepped on stage. Dressed in a tailored deep blue suit, he didn't hold a report or click through slides. Instead, he smiled, and his voice echoed with pride. "Tonight is not about numbers. It's about truth and love." He paused, scanning the crowd. "Many of you know me as a CEO, but few know the man behind the name, and tonight I want to share that man with you." He turned to the side. "Linda, come." Linda stepped up slowly, elegant in a flowing Ankara gown with golden trim, her hair wrapped neatly. The room fell into stunned silence. "This," Austin said, taking her hand, "is my wife, the woman who taught me more about life than any boardroom ever could." Gasps swept through the audience. But he wasn't done. He looked toward the front row. "And this is my daughter." Little Wendy climbed the stage with a toothy grin, her braids bouncing, holding Papa Joseph's hand as he followed behind slowly. "For years I didn't know she existed, but now I do, and I won't waste another second." He knelt beside her and looked into her eyes. "From today forward, Wendy Joseph is my daughter and my heir." The room burst into applause. Some stood, others wiped tears. Papa Joseph chuckled and whispered to no one in particular, I told them she was special." Weeks later, Linda cut the ribbon at her new studio. Her fashion brand, already featured in multiple magazines, was known for blending Afro-modern elegance with meaning and memory. But she didn't stop there. Together with Wendy, she launched a foundation for single mothers, providing them with training, shelter, and support. When asked what to name it, Wendy had piped up with a grin. "The Noodle Heart Project." Everyone had laughed, but Linda's eyes had watered. Because it was perfect. At home they kept things simple. One long wooden table, a soft breeze from the open windows, a bowl of steaming noodles for each of them. Linda, Austin, Wendy, Papa Joseph. No speeches, just love and laughter. As they ate, Austin leaned in, voice low and warm. "I didn't just marry you for Papa," he whispered. "I married you because you made me realize what it means to love." Linda smiled and touched his hand. "All I did was serve a bowl of noodles." She looked around the table at her daughter, her husband, her grandfather-in-law, her new life. "And you gave me the world." And so, from a roadside noodle stand to the heart of a legacy, a single act of kindness became the beginning of a forever family.